on, y'all? Welcome back. Off the bench, 104.5 ESPN. Watch us on CST, youtube.com/1045 ESPN. I want to talk about the plethora of issues that LSU is facing currently, because I think they're all kind of viewed, I think, publicly right now under the same umbrella. But I do think that there are some silos where these are actually some separate issues that need to be worked through. First off, the kind of overarching Title IX problems, in my opinion, are school-wide, right? We talked about that. That was one of the most disappointing findings of Hush Blackwell, is that this was something akin to like institutional rot, right? Underfunding the Title IX office, understaffing it, not reporting things correctly. Many times the process just feeling so obfuscated that even when everything was done by the book by all parties involved, it was very hard to report and to receive justice, right? So there's the Hush Blackwell findings, which is kind of this, like I said, this school-wide rot that needs to be addressed that had cropped up under F. King Alexander and others. There is now, with the Sharon Lewis lawsuit, a separate conversation that was also found in the Hush Blackwell report, and that has to do with the Les Miles era, especially. And this doesn't even have to do with players as much. Like, certainly there are player issues from that time that we have discussed and that have to be examined further as well. But it seems like a lot of this kind of second silo of bad news is a lot due to Coach Miles and how he used to deal with student workers. Some of the mess, I mean, Sharon Lewis alleging that he basically told her that he preferred like white blonde girls or light skinned black girls, and that they were too fat or too ugly. Like, say, some really misogynistic, aggressive stuff, and that's on top of the fact that we now know that there was a secret sexual harassment investigation that had gone on. Sharon saying that she had tried to report it and basically faced extreme retaliation from that. And she says that Verge Osbury was one of the key retaliators in that case, which, I mean, just more horrible news for Verge and how it seems like he may have handled all of this if those allegations are true. So you have a lot then wrapped up in that silo with Coach Miles and how he treated females in the workplace and student workers. And remember, Joe Oliva called for him to be fired. And in that letter, if you read that Joe Oliva letter, it's pretty crazy because he says, we have to ask ourselves, what is worse, that we fire him and have to explain why, or that we later have to explain why we didn't fire him?
Right.
Well, that looks prophetic now, because now you're having to explain why you didn't, and it looks horrible. And now the LSU board and Taylor Porter, the law firm, like, they're all being now accused of basically a cover-up. I mean, Sharon brought RICO charges up on the school yesterday. And so that's kind of the second silo. And then I would say the third silo is the Darius Geis, Gloria Scott, Ed Ogeron drama, because for whatever this is worth, Coach O is not named in that Sharon Lewis lawsuit.
Right.
Also, Hush Blackwell did not find Coach O guilty of wrongdoing, except in this potential Gloria Scott case where Gloria Scott, we know, was sexually harassed by Darius Geis. She's a Superdome security guard. He said some just horrible things to her, and she is saying that she talked to Coach O and told him that he wanted guys to be benched. They did not do that. The school is saying that they thought that they were being extorted because there's a phone conversation with an AAU coach saying, "Look, either bench me, you pay us money, or we go public." So that's the third silo. Is that he said, she said that we've kind of discussed, and Coach Ogeron has a public letter now that he has sent in for the legislature for later in this week, in which he says, look, to the best of his knowledge, he does not recall talking to Ms. Scott directly. He's not saying it for sure didn't happen. It's all very legalese. You can tell it's written by a lawyer, right? He does recall talking to a male individual and having guys in the room and having him like ready to apologize, but the male individual saying, no, we want him to sit, we want money. And so it's just that third silo, like I said, he said, she said, we're getting new details every day. It's tough to parse through exactly what happened, but like that is, and I'm sorry, I know I've gone long-winded here, Jake, but I'm just trying to like I mean, that's the ridiculous groundwork that has to be laid with these just embarrassing conversations.
And unfortunately, it's not being long-winded. It's just laying everything out on the table right now, and it is like, so it is all separate. But as you know, people from afar, like, they'll group it all together. But it is separate things that happen during separate time periods, and I mean, it's all important. I mean, it's all something that you have to follow, but it is kind of difficult, and you have to lay it out like you did, because there's so many different moving parts to everything that's going on right now. And that's why we said, and it wasn't a joke, it's every time you get a notification on your phone that says LSU over the last couple months, it's like, okay, what's this? What's new? What's happening now? And some of it's been, recycled stuff that people have put out there that we already knew, and we, talk about the basketball stuff. Like, we hadn't even gotten into that part of it about what's going on around LSU there, right? I mean, that's not even something we've gotten to.
That feels wholesome,
right?
Paying recruits feels wholesome compared to all of this. I mean, I have no moral or ethical problem with paying recruits. I mean, I'm very much on the record in that regard. I do have moral and ethical problems with the allegations in these other cases.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like,
yes, more terrible headlines.
More just stuff. Yeah, every time that it comes across your phone there. So the latter part of it, when you're talking about Coach O and Darius Geis, when I mentioned, like, that's still going to play itself out, like, that's something that more information's got to come out, and more might come from that. And then we've got the stuff that's coming up from 2013. And when do you think, I'll throw this to you, when do you think all of this will have a resolution, or when do you think any of this will come and we'll know more, and there'll be a definite, okay, here's what's going to happen in A, B, and C? I can't pretend to have, like, I think, an educated answer on that, because as we know, the wheels of justice can move very slowly, and kind of like we alluded to, it's so litigious right now. I mean, everybody's lawyered up, right? The Committee on Women's and Children's Affairs, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the exact title off of the top of my head, but the legislature that are calling LSU representatives to come testify. They called 10 people to come testify, and a lot of the main players aren't going to be there, right, Coach O? And they said you could send a letter instead. Coach O sent the letter through his lawyers. Right.
Scott Woodward has sent a letter. Now, it should be pointed out, Scott Woodward was at the last hearing waiting to be interviewed. He waited for 7 hours. They didn't get to him. They closed the hearing, and so I guess he's not going back. Miriam Seeger has sent a letter, and as her legal defense has sent a letter as well, and it looks like they're getting ready to fight back. They are very upset with LSU. They're very upset with Hush Blackwell. They allude to maybe some potential lawsuits of their own against, like, defamation of character and stuff. So it's getting nasty, and it's only going to get nastier. And then you start talking about firing people. Well, the people who are fired, are they going to try to fight it and say that they were fired without just cause,
right,
and then seek reparations, like, as in that regard? So I'm not a lawyer. I'm sure lawyers could give us better timetables on this, but I don't have any optimism that it's all going away anytime soon. I will say that, because it looks like to me, with everybody getting entrenched and lawyering up on both sides, it looks like to me that this thing could continue to spin and get uglier and uglier. The crazy thing about it is you still just have not heard from a lot of the major actual players in terms of the people who it looked like maybe most responsible for some of the wrongdoing, right? You don't hear anything from F. King Alexander. You don't hear anything from Les Miles. Verd's been nowhere to be found. So it's just, it's this really perfect storm of bad in a lot of ways for a lot of the current employees, where maybe people who were not involved are the ones who are now employed, and so they're the ones now having to do media responsibilities and answer questions and talk to people, and they're having to answer for a lot of sins that maybe they weren't even involved in the past. So it's it's ugly. It's just ugly all the way around, and I think this thing's going to continue to be ugly for quite some time.
Yeah, and a lot of people are wondering what LSU is going to do as far as discipline to the employees, and Oregon State's done some things, with F. King, obviously, and Kansas has moved on from a couple of its employees for, Coach Miles' part. So, that's a big part as well. Like you mentioned it, like if someone does lose their job, what happens, what do they do to counter that? So when we, mention it's probably going to last a long time. I mean, there's so many moving parts to it that there's some that to all of us are uber important for what's going on. You got to get it fixed. And then there's things over here on this side as far as, what can spiral just if you try to fix this issue here. So there's going to be major things that happen. I don't think there's any denying that. But when they happen, I don't think any of us know.
Yeah, when or what, we do not know. We'll continue to see. Also, it seems like there's new information every day, right? There's like new allegations, new evidence. And so we will just have to watch this kind of continue to develop firsthand. But again, it's just very, very disappointing. I think if you're an LSU grad or anybody associated with LSU or that represents LSU in any sort of public way, it just feels horrible right now. So here's to hoping this can somehow get better. Now we're going to try to effect an awkward transition as we will get back to more traditional sports talk. Starting next segment, I want to talk about last night's baseball game, some of the factors in play going into this weekend, get some of that pulmonary sound from after the game. So keep it locked right here on Off the Bench, 104.5, 100.3, 94.7, 11:30 a.m. CST. How about that?